So I was just reading about this spat between Dr. Michael Dyson and Dr. Cornel West about President Obama. And in my opinion, it's a waste of intellectual minds to go back and forth about President Obama. President Obama is president for another couple of years, and I doubt very seriously but that what Dr. West has to say is going to affect him one way or the other. Now, having said that, I've been keeping up with what's going on across the country with the police and the black community, about our young black men being unarmed and being killed, and the different reasons for the killings. And let me just say that the problem of the police and the black community is deeper than just the police disliking young black boys, young black men and women. In my opinion, the root of the problem is that those black men of my generation, we failed those young people. We failed them in that we left our women to raise them by herself. Now, she's done the best that she can do, but in some cases, some of our young black men and women need that authoritative male figure in the household. You take some of these young men, they're difficult to deal with for some mothers. Not all of them, but some of them are. And for that young lady that's growing up into womanhood, she looks for that father figure, that male figure, for approval. And when he's not around, she looks for her boyfriend. She looks for her male friends for that approval, for that love that she did not receive growing up. And we handicap those kids of ours when we leave, when we're not there for them. And you see some of these guys that have 5, 6, 7 or more baby mamas and children by different women. Now, for the athlete and some of these rappers and the people that can afford it, well, economically, it's okay. But those who cannot afford it economically, those kids will grow up in poverty. And they'll do whatever is necessary for them to survive. In most cases, something of a criminal element. Selling drugs, prostitution, other illegal activities. And it's because of the males, black men, and we've deserted them. We left them to fend for themselves. Yeah, it's not to condone it. One thing that I've always said was that we need to get to the root of how are these drugs getting into the community, because the only black person that I know that owns plane is a preacher. You know, some of these athletes and I guess a few of these rappers, they own planes, but they're not transporting drugs from South America, from Asia, some of these islands into America. They're not doing that. So how are those drugs getting into the community? We need to stop that. Find out who the culprits are. And I guarantee you those drugs dealers will cease to exist. But as long as there's supply and demand, you know, these drug dealers are going to continue to infest the neighborhoods. So these types of issues in the black community, they really need to be addressed. Because most often black men, most of us, have had some type of encounter with the police. And they're not always good. Take me, for instance. I remember once I was stopped. I was in my 20s, years ago. Stopped by a police officer and accused me of kidnapping a little Mexican girl. He said, well, it was a kidnapping. And they were driving a red truck, and I wanted to check your truck. I said, check it if you want to. I said, now here you all are accusing us of not taking care of our own kids. And now you think I want to kidnap somebody else's? Well, they caught whoever it was that had kidnapped the little girl, because he came back and said, oh, well, I'm sorry. They caught the person, and you're free to go. After waiting like about 15 minutes. Second time was, I was in front of my office. I do business, nationally and international business. I was in front of my office during the Christmas holidays, it was years ago, and giving $40 to my cousin to go to the hardware store to go buy a ladder. Just so happens a police officer was driving by. Now my office is on a interstate, right off the interstate. A lot of traffic. And he was on the feeder road and saw me giving the $40 to my cousin. He pulls up, turns his lights on, and gets out of his car with his hand on his gun. And he tells everybody, there were four of us outside. He says, all of you, put your hands on the car. And I'm like, officer, what's the problem? He said, no, put your hand on the car. So I obeyed his command, put my hands on the car. And he said, now tell me what's going on out here? I said, officer, this is my business right here you're standing in front of. I'm giving my cousin $40 so we can go buy a ladder. Because we have some work to go finish up on today. And his words were, oh, I thought it was a drug deal. We looked at each other like, but I didn't forget him. You know, he was a little short guy with a mustache. I didn't forget him. So he got back in his car. He didn't apologize or anything. He just got back in his car and he drove off. Well, about 10 years ago, I was in the mall shopping, and I just happened to recognize this police officer. He was in a wheelchair. So, my thing is this, and people really have to understand, there's a price to pay, regardless if we see it or we understand it or not. God does not like ugly, at least the God that I serve. I can't preach for other people's gods. I don't know them. But the God that I serve, trust me, He takes care of your enemies, those abusers, those misusers. And while we may not see it in this generation, it could affect the next generation. So while you see some of these young men who are being killed unarmed, believe it. Those people that did the killing, those people that were doing the wrong, they can say they were just doing their jobs, but look, the God that I serve, they may not suffer any consequences, but their children or their grandchildren or their great-grandchildren will suffer. Trust me, believe that. It may be in the form of a cancer, it may be in the form of some illness, it may be in the form of some accident, but they will suffer. So I don't even worry about when somebody tries to do something to me. I let God handle it. Because everybody that has done something to me that I know about, well, in a few cases, they're no longer here to even talk about it. It wasn't anything I did. So, you know, you got to believe that God will take care of you. Now, I do believe that things will get worse before they get better. Because of the fact, like I said, We left our women to raise our kids. And all this is just the byproduct of us leaving our families, leaving our children for our women to raise. And trust me, they've done the best that they can do. But if you really look at it, like I said, you handicap your children when you off and leave them. If you really look at it closely, the very best at anything by anybody, they all had a male figure, father figure in their lives. Be it Magic Johnson, be it Michael Jordan, be it Jerry Rice, be it Tiger Woods, be it whoever. They had a father figure. Martin Luther King, they had a father figure in their lives. Malcolm X, he had Elijah Muhammad. Some father figure that they looked up to. So we handicap our children when we're not there for them. And don't think for 1 minute that you can be a father if you have 5 different children by 5 different women. See, and you're paying your child support and say, well, I'm taking care of my kids. Yeah, well, you're taking care of them economically. But as far as the love there, as far as them being able to see you, interact with you, that's a different story. And that's what a lot of these kids are missing. So we have to do better. We have to. And as far as these kids watching these rap videos and thinking they're going to be rappers or they're going to be athletes or in entertainment, and we have to teach them better. And all this is, again, is just a sign of a lot of us black men not being there to raise our kids, to not show that leadership. And then women have stepped in and they've done the best that they can do. However, in some cases, the best is not good enough when you talk about raising some of these hard-headed boys, because they need that authoritative figure. That's why they defy authority. You buck up to the police. In my day, we wouldn't even think about anything like that. But these kids now, they go up and buck up against the police like it's nothing. So now I've addressed the problem. Let's talk about a solution. This guy, Tavis Smiley, who was parading around the country, giving these town hall meetings or whatever you want to call them, with these different national figures, national leaders. And they were talking about solutions in the black community. But in my opinion, this is from a business standpoint, because I look at things a little bit differently. It was just a waste of time. It was just something that was a reflection on what he did. Because I'm like this, what results? Was there any tangible results out of those meetings? Did one person come off welfare because of those meetings? Did anybody progress? Or was anybody promoted because of those meetings? Did anybody come from being poor to being middle class in any of those meetings? What solutions were there? Now, I hope that happens. I'm not, I'm not judging you. But we have to look at what we do. And now, how do we solve these issues, or some of these issues? Or, how do we address some of these issues of some of these young men who are in and out of the criminal justice system, and they come out and they have nowhere to turn to get a job, so they can't get a job, so they can't make any money. So what do? They turn to drugs, they turn to something illegal, and they go right back into the criminal justice system, like a revolving door. Now, if Tavis and his group of leaders, if he had just brought the, see, he had the wrong leaders. The leaders he should have had were those from that particular city, that community. They should have been the ones that were talking about the problems and what needed to be done. Those national people they could have stayed home. They didn't have to come to all those different cities. You get people, leaders from those cities, and let them talk about the problem, because each city is not the same. There are certain problems in one city that may not be true for the other. So that's just my opinion. Now, I think what we should do is go back. Why don't we go back to a business model that worked? Business model that worked is the one I'm talking about is Greenwood, Oklahoma, better known as Black Wall Street. I mean, those Black Americans had that thing clicking.